here for your consideration. I think we'll go ahead and take up redistricting. I know that we have our consultant, Kurt Spitzer, available to go over the maps. You all got a follow-up email from Mr. Spitzer subsequent to your work session last week, where he forwarded, based on the commission's discussion, the 3 maps that you all indicated to move forward with, 2 for consideration in regard to your single-member districts, and just 1 map for consideration for your at-large districts. I did forward an email to each of you earlier with some suggested language for a motion, the point there being to capture authorizing staff to undertake some of the follow-up activities that we need to accomplish subsequent to your action. And I will turn this over to Mr. Spitzer.
Welcome. Good to have you with us again, Kurt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the county attorney said, at your last work session meeting, you considered, we discussed 7 maps that came before you. Some were the recommendations of the Redistricting Board, others were at the request of individual commissioners. Concerning some of the recommendations of the Redistricting Board recommended maps that included housekeeping, technical changes, and some minor, what I would call policy changes. And those fell into 2 different categories. And if you can see this map of the at-large districts here, for the at-large districts using the current boundaries, because of changes in the shapes of census blocks that were made by the Bureau of the Census, there were 4 census blocks that were split by current district boundaries. And here's an example of one here in this area. And so what the Redistricting Board had recommended was that the boundary of this area encompass this block, so that this block is not split by a district boundary, and that we do not need to go through an exercise to make calculations as to how many people are really in this half of this block and how many are in this half. And there are other areas too, some very small minor areas with the at-large plans. So that was one change. There were changes similar to this with also with the single-member district areas. There's only 2, though, in the case of single-member districts. Here is 1 block that's split between District 5 and 6, and then moving up north, there was a block whose shape changed, and so there were parts of this block that were split between Districts 4 and 5. And so in both the single-member and the at-large plans, the recommendation of the Redistricting Board was to change the boundaries of the residence areas or the single-member district areas so that they follow block boundaries. That, I think, is clearly some technical changes. And so then beyond that, as relates to the at-large residence areas, Commissioner Justice had made this, or requested this recommendation, which would move all of western St. Pete into District 3, so that the city of St. Petersburg would be completely contained within District 3. If you do that, then this little housekeeping change, and also this one here, becomes moot because the boundary is nowhere near those 2 areas. And so this is the recommendation alternative 3, which would change the boundaries between District 1 and District 3, the residence areas for the at-large districts. We separately included a table of statistics that are really just a little bit easier to read than the statistics on each map. And as you can see, the point spread between the largest and the smallest district residence district in the at-large plan is right around 3 percentage points. And that's a very, very good spread in terms of deviations. You don't run into a problem until you get close to 9 or 10 percentage points. So you're well within the district area, the tolerance is there. With regard to the single-member plans, there are 2 that are in your packet today. One seeks to move this area of District 5 north of Enterprise Road from District 5 into District 4, and moves Clearwater Beach and adjacent areas from District 4 into District 5. In addition to those changes, this plan and also the other single-member district plan makes adjustments to district boundaries between 5 and 6, and also between 6 and 7, so that the cities of Largo, Seminole, and Pinellas Park are not split by the boundary between District 5 and 6 and/or the boundary between District 6 and 7. And these changes, again, are included in both of the options with regard to single-member districts. Under this option, there is a deviation between the smallest and the largest district of just under 4.5 percentage points. The other alternative concerning single-member district plans is identical to the first alternative with regard to the boundaries between districts 5 and 6 and 6 and 7. It also moves the city of Clearwater Beach, the Clearwater Beach area into the city of Clearwater area in District 5, but it continues the east-west boundary between districts 4 and 5 along Sunset Point Road, making this a straighter line in this area here, and moves all of this area north of Sunset Point from District 5 into District 4. This particular option has a deviation of 4.6 percentage points, and so they're all well within acceptable tolerances. And again, the single-member district plans are identical to one another, except for the differences between the boundaries between 4 and 5. The second plan runs along Sunset Point. The first plan runs along Enterprise Road. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission might have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just looking at 2 and 3, and 1 and 2, just to see what the total population is in either case. It looks like a couple of hundred people.
Right.
The net.
They're very, very similar in terms of populations and deviations.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Any questions for Kurt? Okay. Jewel, do you think we ought to take this as just a package and make a recommendation on the at-large first, and then look at the single members?
Yeah, I recommend that you have 2 different votes,
Okay.
one for the at-large map and one for the single-member map.
Okay. Commissioner Justice?
I don't have a question. I have a motion when you're ready.
Okay. Commissioner Peters, did you have a question? Do you have a question, Commissioner? Yes, go ahead.
I think it was,
Microphone.
I think it was Commissioner Karen Seal that talked about the little shootout for Enterprise Road. Was that you? Mm-hmm. And someone gave me a call today questioning just that little small cutout, moving that into District 4 instead of 5. It's a really small slither. If you take Proposal 3.
I'm sorry, alternative 1 or 2?
Single-member districts, RB Proposal 3.
RB proposal.
I'm looking at what we have.
All right, I was just looking at what he sent us. Let me go back.
Oh, I'm sorry, because I'm looking at what's in our packet on the.
Go ahead, Joe.
We can narrow it down. On the single-member districts, we narrowed down to alternative 1 and alternative 2 during Thursday's workshop.
So
It doesn't mean we can't readdress it, but
Sure.
we had taken that.
No, that's okay. I'll go over to alternative 1 and alternative. Oops, sorry.
When you said that little part, Commissioner, did you mean the part below Sunset Point that kind of diagonals a little bit?
Yes.
Okay. So the idea was to put that one on Sunset Point and then go up to Enterprise? Is that what you heard, or?
Well, no, the concern was that they just wanted to remain in their current, they wanted to continue to be represented in their current district if possible. And it was just, I got one phone call. I didn't get several, just one phone call. And I did tell them that I would bring that up today because I thought that we had some conversation here when we were talking about it through our workshop about, why that small little piece was being moved, so.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Flowers. Any other, yes, Commissioner Seal.
Well, I guess in response, I pulled out the memo that we originally had from Kurt about the redistricting criteria. And I guess I wanted to make the point that if you look at over the years, District 5 has probably been changed more than any other district since 1990, since 2000. And one of the common criteria is to recognize the existing district boundaries. The boundaries of the new districts may seek to retain their existing boundaries to the extent possible. The changes that are being proposed are pretty big. You're changing to Clearwater Beach, and then you're taking out that whole area of countryside that has been in District 5 since 2000. So, I guess I understand the Clearwater Beach. The other criteria was to avoid splitting communities of interest, and then the important thing in the criteria in the Pinellas Charter was, where feasible, redistricting plans shall consider utilizing municipal boundaries and keep the unincorporated areas of the county together. If you move down to Sunset Point Road, you will take out a large part of unincorporated area of Clearwater, which is Lake Chautauqua. And, I would prefer to keep the district boundaries as close to what they have been all these years, again, using common redistricting criteria. But I can live with alternative 1, which is moving it to Enterprise Road. You'll still retain a good part of the unincorporated county, plus you'll also keep part of countryside, which is in the city of Clearwater. So that would be my preference, please. Alternative 1.
Alternative 1. Okay. Commissioner Gerard?
Just a question for Commissioner Flowers. Did you find the map that we're looking at for alternative 1? Is it that little niche at the very top near at Enterprise? Yeah, do we have any idea why that was there in the first place?
What's that?
I believe that's part of the City of Safety Harbor.
That
Oh,
little,
okay.
that little piece, it
On
was
Enterprise?
it was incorporated into Safety Harbor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, that makes sense then.
I think I actually asked that question at our former meeting.
yeah.
So, yeah.
And I can't remember, there's not too many houses, because that's a real commercial.
It's actually all
It's
commercial,
all commercial corner, so I know.
right there. Yeah, I'm quite familiar with there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Never mind.
I frequent there a lot, too, so. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, yeah, Commissioner Justice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move that for the at-large districts, we adopt the redistricting proposal identified as alternative at-large alternative 3, and that we authorize staff to comply with all statutory notice and advertising requirements.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner Justice, second by Commissioner Peters. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those, the single-member district, the at-large district, let me make sure I say this correctly. Alternative 3 passes unanimously. Commissioner Seal.
Yes, I make a motion that I move that for the single-member district 4 and 5, or 4, 5, 6, and 7 districts, we adopt the redistricting proposal identified as alternative 1, and that we authorize staff to comply with all statutory notice and advertising requirements.
Okay, I have a motion. Okay, that's fine, no problem. I have a motion and a second by Commissioner Justice. Commissioner Peters.
Yeah, only because, so also in the guidelines, which you didn't mention, is that it says that you have to be compact as possible, and that you can use major roads as boundaries. And so by taking in Clearwater Beach, that's taken a large population away from District 4, and by adding that countryside area, it kind of evens it out and levels it out. And then by keeping the countryside area, you're taking all of the population of Clearwater Beach away and leaving very little to add to District 4. Granted, we're within that parameter, but I still think that doing the compact is what fits constitutionally and within our charter. And I don't know that Clearwater Beach residents were complaining because they weren't in their, District 5. I still contend that most people have no idea what district they're in unless we specifically tell them. I can't tell you how many people from Clearwater and Safety Harbor said they voted for me when they aren't in my district. And so, I would contend that very, very, very limited and few people would know what district they live in. And I really believe that we should fit within the constitutionality and the charter rules about the compactness, because I really like that, and that you use a major corridor or roadway as the boundaries. And Sunset Point is a perfect corridor. I don't know that you could draw that much better than the way the committee presented this alternative 2. I understand, Karen, you're passionate about it, but I just think that alternative 2 fits the guidelines much better with more reasons, with more different stipulations. And so I would not support the motion. And would hopefully that you all would agree and stick with the compactness, because it really fits so much better with the Constitution and with the Charter.
I just want to make a point that Clearwater, and under Alternative 1, Clearwater Beach does move into District 5.
Yeah.
So,
They both, under both scenarios.
under both scenarios, just for the record.
Right. Well, just for clarification, what I said is by that moving down there, District 5 gains that entire population. And in the proposal that you're making, you're keeping the vast majority of countryside, and so therefore there wasn't a swap. So District 4 doesn't gain the population that's equitable, where if you give them the countryside part, then it's almost like an even swap with Clearwater Beach versus the countryside. And so it's just a difference in that population swap. It's as though you're taking in, all of Clearwater Beach, but not adjusting so that District 4 gets more population.
Well, let me, Kurt, just so I'm clear here, because there's the conversation going on. Under Alternative 1, I just want to make sure I'm clear. Under Alternative 1, District 4 loses less people, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, that, number one. And the second thing is that under Alternative 1, all of Clearwater is captured in District 5 except the northern piece. So we've done our best. I think one of the things that you said, Kurt, was that it's hard to get all of Clearwater and all of St. Pete in one. But I think by doing Alternative 1, you're capturing a great deal, if not, well, a great deal, almost all of Clearwater by going up to Enterprise and just leaving that countryside really north of Enterprise into District 4. So you're doing our best to try to give as much of Clearwater in District 5. So I understand both arguments, but I kind of lean towards that Alternative 1 myself. But
This is Alternative 1 with municipal boundaries behind it, so you can see where the unincorporated area is and the incorporated area in the city of Clearwater area. This is Alternative 2.
Yeah, it's very close, isn't it? I mean, you're gaining and losing Clearwater with that Sunset Point line going straight across. You're gaining a little bit south of Sunset Point, and they're losing some, obviously, north of Sunset Point. So, but the net effect is to give a little bit less of a drop, if you will, in population for District 4 under Alternative 1. Either way, we can't capture all of Clearwater, so.
You cannot.
Yeah. Okay. Any other conversation? We have a motion and a second for Alternative 1. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries 6-1. So that also has the stipulation of granting staff the authority to move forward in the directions that they need to. Kurt, is there anything else that you think that we need to take on? We obviously had the deadline by the end of this calendar year. There was a comment made early on, I don't know if you were here, by one of our residents that was a little bit concerned about some of the issues that she raised. I don't want to paraphrase those issues, but from a time standpoint, maybe you could speak just generally about that, the direction we had because of the late arrival of the census.
Right. I think this census was unusual in that we, primarily because of the pandemic and the effects that it had on collecting data, and it did arrive almost 5 months late, but it's been received now for a few months. I think that it's presumed to be correct. We assume that the data from the Census Bureau is accurate. If there are some gross errors that are discovered a year or two down the road, you always have the option of adjusting your boundaries during an odd numbered year. But I think that, and there is the option too to make some adjustments to the 2020 data based on good demographic principles on your own. But the window to do that for this year has come and gone months ago now. There's really no way to make adjustments now to this data. I think your options, if someone feels strongly about that there's some sort of a flaw with the data, that they can demonstrate to us that there's a problem with it. I think as we said before, the data, the deviations of your current districts are within acceptable tolerances. But you have this opportunity now to make some largely housekeeping and technical changes, and then the change to the Clearwater Beach and Enterprise area. I would suggest that you move ahead with that and then wait and see if there's some well-documented corrections that need to be made to the census data at some point in the future, and if necessary, you can act on it at that time.
And Kurt, real quickly, how would that transpire if those kinds of change? Would that information just come to us at the county, and then we would have to determine a course of action at that point?
I think we'd watch other areas of the country, other jurisdictions, see if there's some, global recommended corrections that the Bureau of the Census wants to make. You could do that, and then act upon that yourself, or if there's some other source if the Bureau of Economic and Business Research at the University of Florida, which is the Florida legislature and state government contracts with that bureau to provide all of its population information and demographic projections. If they say there's a, clearly there's some sort of an error here, and we recommend the following changes, then you could look at that too.
Okay. All right. And I just wanted to take one final opportunity to thank our Redistricting Commission for the work that they did. And as you said, it was a very compressed time frame. And I think, the good news for Pinellas County is that our growth seemed to be pretty evenly distributed across the county. So we didn't have a lot of big changes that other counties that have high growth going on might have had. But nonetheless, I wanted to thank that group and you, Kurt, and for the work that you've done to get us to this point. I think your point is well taken. We can make adjustments in odd numbered years going forward if something comes to our attention. So anything else? Yes, Commissioner Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I just wanted to, along with our board, I wanted to add my thanks to the staff that supported it, Kevin and Brian in our attorney's office and everyone. And you mentioned the advisory board. I would say almost every single one was a very non-political person, and we're just doing it for community service. And I think they learned a lot about how we operate and how we're structured, and we